All right. Thanks so much for joining the Medical School Index. Today we have Dr. England with us. He's a sports medicine doctor and family medicine doctor in Wyoming. He is actually my cousin as well, and he attended the St. Matthews University School of Medicine in Grand Cayman Islands. I hope I said that correct. Is that correct, Rich?
Yeah, I mean, it's the Cayman Islands, and Grand Cayman is the biggest island in the Cayman Islands. So you got it.
Okay, awesome. Do you want to tell us a little bit about what it was like to live in the Cayman Islands during medical school?
It was pretty cool, pretty surreal. I will say, like, my wife and I lived there. Actually, the first semester, I got engaged like right before I went down there, so I was there by myself, and I lived in the dorms. They have like a dormitory there, and I lived there. But as far as the island itself, you want to just know a little bit about the island?
Yeah, like
And
so I mean it's not like US soil, right?
no, no, no. It's a British territory. You drive on the other side of the road there. So that was harder to get adjusted to, especially you got to be careful when you're looking both ways because you could try to cross the street and think you're in America and get hit by a car if you're looking the wrong way. And believe me, it's happened there. But I didn't have a car for like the first year there, so I just moved rides and walked and there's little taxis you can take. Like, I don't know if you've been to Mexico, they have those colectivos.
Yeah. Yeah, so
Yeah.
they and the spoken language there is obviously English because it's British. So and then how close were you to the beach?
Oh, it was right behind the dorms there. And at times I was, a couple blocks away. And then the last year there, I was like on the beach. So it, I met people, and then I kind of advanced closer to the beach. The more people I got to know, and so the situation improved. But yeah, I was in the dorms, so that's kind of nice when you're there to get your feet wet. But plus, I wasn't married at that time yet, and then so it was just easier. And I think they have two sets of dorms there, and they're about a mile away from the university. And so I would jump on the bus or the collectivo, usually driven by like crazy Jamaican bus drivers, and they would
Uh-huh.
take us to the school. And it was like a couple dollars. The thing with the money, it's more expensive in the Cayman Islands than the U.S. Like, for instance, a dollar there is actually like $1.25 US. So that's kind of the ratio, if
Do they
that makes
use
sense.
the like British pound or
No, they have their own currency, and
okay.
they'll take American dollars. So U.S. currency is what they'll take. And so yeah, I did. The island is pretty flat. There's not a lot of mountains, but what it lacks in mountains, it makes up for in like coral reef mountains. So it's one of the top diving destinations in the world, and you have like 200 feet visibility in the water. It's doesn't have any water source that, as far as a river, so the water around the island doesn't get dirty, and so they have to desalinate their water to get fresh water. So they have like a desalination system to make fresh water for like the drinking water on the island.
That is so interesting. And it sounds
Yeah.
like what you like, you said the cost of living is a little bit higher, but it sounds like what they lack in the cost of living, the tuition at St. Matthews University is pretty reasonable. It's about, I looked up today, it's about 15,000 per semester. So that would be about 30,000 per year.
Well, a little, probably more than that. How many semesters are you looking at? Because when I went, it was 3 semesters.
Oh, 3 semesters per year. Okay.
Yeah, and were you looking at the clinical and the preclinical tuition,
Uh,
or?
I didn't look at the clinical. So is the clinical more?
Well, when I was there, it was probably like 10,000 for the preclinical, and then like 12,000 for the clinical. So I would assume it might be a little more, but
Yeah.
inflation, I guess.
Right.
So
So
Um,
did you do your clinical years in, I know you did them part of it in Florida. So the clinical years aren't spent in the Cayman Islands, right? It's just the first 2 years there.
no, yeah, just the first 2 years. Yeah.
Okay. And so where do they have you do your clinical rotations?
I did them in Orlando most of the time. Then I did that would probably be 75% of them. And then I did pediatrics in Pensacola, if you know where that is, also in
Yeah,
Florida.
also on the coast, which
And
is
then
nice.
ironically, I did psych at the Northern Virginia Mental Health Institute up in like DC area.
Oh,
So
nice.
that was one of our sites. And then I did electives elsewhere, like in Utah and Florida. And then Wyoming, I did a sub I in Casper, Wyoming, ironically. So
Oh, very
that,
cool.
yeah, a sub I is basically just like you're auditioning for like a residency. And so it's at a residency program. Um, what I was going to say, our sites vary. Those are just the sites I did, but our school has a lot of sites. Orlando is a major hub, but then we have Chicago, New York, and Baltimore would be the other major hubs. Um,
Okay, so big cities. And then when you went through these hospitals, were these were like the program directors there, or the people who manage the rotations, like the doctors that you followed, they had St. Matthew's students before and they were familiar with the university and whatnot.
yeah, yeah,
Okay, awesome.
yes.
And so pretty great places to live on the beach. Did you get to do a lot of the things in the Cayman Islands that you would have wanted to?
Yeah, I mean it's a pretty wealthy island. I mean it's notorious for banking, you know, offshore accounts and stuff. And but there's not like a bunch of large banks. They're all like you don't see banks the basically, but I heard there's like 500 banks there, but they're like ran by people like for instance one person will be like a bank for a couple wealthy people, if that makes sense. Like a lot of uh there's just not physical establishments, if that makes sense. The
Yeah, it's
banks are more, I don't know how to explain it, but a lot of people, since their tax laws are different, they want to put their money there, you know, an offshore account, similar to like a Swiss account. So there's lots of banks, but it's honestly really hard to get a bank account there. We did everything in cash when we were there. So
okay. So it sounds
my
like
wife
there's
worked for a doctor's office.
some logistical things that you have to figure out just in that it's being foreign soil. Um, but it so are these professors that teach at St. Matthew's, are they, I noticed on the website that a lot of MDs and PhDs, are these guys from Britain or are they from the United States?
All over. I mean, I would say several of my instructors were from the US, and then some of them were from India, some from Great Britain. I think there's some from Canada. We had some from either the Ukraine or Russia, Mexico, Philippines, all over the world. So,
Okay, very cool. And
so,
are, oh, go ahead.
mhm. I was just sorry for the rambling about the island too,
Oh,
but
no worries. That's it's actually really cool to learn about. So are these students that are in your class, are they mostly from the United States or is it
yes, I would say United States and Canada. So
okay? So pretty typical. Um, and then how big is the class size?
mine was like 75.
Okay, cool.
So
And I noticed that on their website that their class size is smaller, which is generally a positive thing. So that's awesome. And
yeah, I think it's even got smaller since when went there.
yeah, it seems like it's definitely smaller than 75 just looking at their match list. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so going in kind of to the didactic years. So um, is it kind of like just a traditional school in the sense that it's like
Yes.
one kind of full year of didactic, a short summer, and then another year of didactic, or is it
Yeah, it's continuous, but there's like system based learning, and then there's categorical based learning. It's more traditional in the sense where you learn all the anatomy, all the physiology, path one, path two, biochemistry. Whereas a lot of the schools nowadays are doing system based, like you'll learn all the anatomy, pathology, physiology, everything about the heart, and then you'll go to the respiratory and you'll just learn a section of the body that way. Whereas we just learned like all our anatomy together, all our physiology together. Does that make sense?
yeah, yeah. So systems based versus I guess I don't know what you call that, but yeah, most of them are going to systems based now. So was your
Yeah, and I don't
anatomy?
know if that
Go ahead.
changed. I don't know if that changed or not, but that's how it was when I was there.
Right. And was the anatomy like, was it dissection or was it prosection?
No, that's probably one area where it was nice, but at the same time, we might have got a little shortchanged. Granted, a lot of medical students probably have done gross anatomy before they get to medical school, but I think there's a law in the Cayman Islands as far as specimens. So we actually, if you've ever been to the Leonardo, we use plastinated specimens.
Okay. So they were, yeah, more like models.
Yeah, like beef jerky.
Oh, wow.
like all, they weren't models; they were real bodies, but
Oh,
they were
okay. But they
just
were plasticized or whatever you call it.
plastinated. Yeah, like I
Oh,
mean,
plastinated.
yeah. So you could see the nerve and identify it or whatever the vessel, but it was just kind of basically dried out.
Okay. Super interesting.
Yeah,
Um, okay. So, and then was the anatomy in the first semester or,
yeah, hmm
okay. So
yeah.
pretty typical, knocked that out. And then was it kind of similar to a lot of the traditional medical schools where you take step one, like right after your first 2 years?
Yes,
Okay. And did they give
yes.
you some time to study for that or?
Yeah, they actually have you pass a shelf exam, like an NBME, National Board of Medical Examiner test to kind of simulate step one before you take step one as well. So, which that was kind of nerve wracking, but you had to pass that test to sit for boards. So,
That's nice. They give you kind of like a practice test though to help you prepare.
yes, it was okay. I felt like more than prepared for step one. It was easier probably than I thought it was, but I felt prepared to do it. And then the other tests were even better because I knew what to expect. So
Awesome. And so in the didactic years, did they have a lot of opportunities for like volunteerism on the Cayman Islands, or getting involved?
yeah, yeah, they did. I mean, we did a few things. I guess we had probably not quite as much as exposure as say a medical school like I know the University of Utah, where you're just on a large campus with lots of medical facilities around there. But they have a couple small hospitals, so we got to go there. But as far as like service, I mean, I did do some service, like at nursing homes and things like that. But I wouldn't say that's an extreme, uh, like prevalent thing they offer. Honestly, I was just studying my butt off, and during the breaks, I would enjoy the island. But yeah, I mean, service that would be nice and great. But I was trying to stay afloat and just study
Yeah,
and learn
totally.
everything I could.
Yeah.
So
And where did they have opportunities to do research there that some students may have gotten involved in or?
yeah, there definitely were people that did that. I wouldn't say that I gravitated toward research myself, but I did do that in residency and my fellowship. But I I wasn't big into research myself, but I know that there were people that did that. I mean, it definitely helps for resumes at certain residencies. They really like to see that, but not something I did a lot of, I'll be honest.
Yeah, yeah, and it's, I mean, it makes sense. Um, family medicine doesn't seem like they're harping too much on research, so you've had a lot of success with um, what you've done. So, and then into the clinical years, were those kind of like, did you get a summer off at all, or?
I mean, I had time off between like my step one and my clinical years. So that was just where they would place you and things like that. Like that took a couple months. So, but I didn't really get a set time off, if that makes sense.
Okay,
Like,
so it wasn't planned out. It was just kind of like, this is your time to take step, and then you'll start. Um,
once, yeah, like, when it's in, when you pass the thing and yeah, I mean, I passed everything first try but it really wasn't, I mean, I had an idea that I was going to Florida, but I think there was some thought process in between there. It wasn't just like you're going here at this date. It was after, everything was set in stone before they committed to what I was actually going to do. If that makes sense.
yeah, totally. And something I was going to ask you as well, did you have to get like a educational visa or something to study in the Cayman Islands?
You do. Yeah. Yeah. You
Okay.
have to get um, I forget what it's called, but yeah, it's basically you have to get a visa to be there. I mean, it's an easy place to live. It's safer than the United States, hands down. I would bet money on it that it's one of the safest places in the world to live, which you can't say about other islands and other countries. But yeah, like hardly any crime. Um, it's beautiful. I mean, at one point I was walking home on the beach to we had a like a 2 bedroom apartment, well, a 2 story apartment, on the beach there
Wow.
that we rented from people that we met at church. And so, yeah, I just would wake up to the waves, and then I could walk home on the beach. And so it was a great place to live. They have, all the restaurants you could think of, like that are in the US for the most part. And then all the tropical type resort stuff. They have, the Ritz Carltons there, Marriott. Um, and it's a great place to be. As far as if you're looking at a Caribbean school, it's the quickest flight. You're like an hour from Miami. Just fly over. You basically fly over to Cuba, and you're there. Whereas some of these Caribbean schools, you got to travel a ways to get there, and so safety is a factor, I think, which is it's going to be the safest island, I guarantee it. And then as far as amenities, like if you're, some of these Caribbean islands are third world, but this is like not third world at all. It's nice. So I think in that respect, the island's good. But as far as the education is concerned, it's very good. There's limiting things, like we mentioned, maybe not. I didn't do a lot of research. Didn't seem like it was something that was harped on there. I also, you have to take a shelf exam to sit for the step exam. So I don't think you have to do that at a U.S. school. Um, Other negatives, the school is accredited in most states, and we had people that matched all over the place, like Northwestern, Cleveland Clinic, lots of other Mayo Clinic places. But uh, because of the accreditation, we're not accredited in every state. So California, we can practice there, but you have to go through some hoops, just because for whatever reason, their board, when they came to the island like many years ago, they didn't give us accreditation, and so that was something that is a negative on the school. But in like most states, we are accredited, like a great majority, unless they adopt that the California accreditation status, which a couple of states have. I think like Kansas and Indiana as well. So that's a negative for sure. You can certainly practice in any VA hospital, and then like most of the states. So it didn't really matter to me because I didn't want to go to California. So
Yeah. Yeah. That makes a lot of sense. Honestly,
yeah,
it just sounds like a great gig. The location, the price is fair. And then it sounds like, something that we've talked about before, and it's been really cool to see you go through this is like a lot of people, there's different kind of stigmas or things people think about, maybe Caribbean schools or DO schools. Um, and then, obviously I'm going to a DO school, but uh, it's been, it's been good to learn a lot of the information to find that, that's not a hindrance for most people. And so do you want to just talk a little bit about the Caribbean, and were there any factors that kind of like for people, maybe your classmates, that was it difficult to get into a residency, or any hurdles that you had to go through other than just the state licensure limitations?
yeah, no, I think if you're a good student, you're going to end up where you are. I mean, like for instance, my buddy, he's from the Bahamas. He worked on boats, scrubbing decks, and he wanted to be a radiologist. And he was smart, but he had to tutor his way through medical school to pay for some of it. But he was a smart guy, and now he's in interventional radiology at Northwestern doing that. And you can be anything you want to be. That being said, I would, if you're a good student, like I noticed like the Canadian students, that some of these other students, they tended, that didn't have as many say US options, they tended to do a little better in my opinion. Um, but I think overall they were just better students to begin with. Whereas because there's not as many medical schools in Canada. So that being said, obviously, I think I would have gone to a U.S. school had I gotten in. I didn't give it much of a chance. I didn't do as great on the MCAT as I wanted to. So therefore, I was like, I basically didn't think I had much of a chance at MD, and then I was waiting on DO, and then I just committed to the Caribbean. So I think it's a viable option for people that want to just do medical school like you're supposed to do medical school. But yeah, you definitely can't take it as a joke, or you will, you'll fell out. Like it is harder. Um, every medical school is hard no matter what. I mean, I would say that the education there is no joke. Like
Yeah.
you're gonna learn, but if you go there unprepared, then that's like anything, And so I don't know if that's what people want to hear,
Yeah.
but
I mean, I think it's super good to hear like the data that, you've got a buddy that did interventional radiology at Northwestern. I mean, that's a big deal. And to hear that, you're practicing in sports medicine, that you're, have a
yeah.
fellowship training. It's been really cool for me to see as a young student. So, um, anything else that you would want to share about St. Matthews that we haven't touched on so far?
Um, I think you can be anything you want to be from that school. I don't think it's limiting in the sense that it's just what you put into it, and that's any school you go to. Um, but certainly my thoughts would be I would try to go to a U.S. school if you can, but if you can't, it's like an option. Like it's sometimes for me, like if the Caribbean wasn't there, I probably wouldn't have became a doctor. Yeah. So it's a way for some people that maybe are on the borderline or just can't, maybe they just can't get into a US school. It's a way for them to totally fulfill their dream, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that's a great way of putting it. I feel like it's a great opportunity and a blessing to be able to go there.
And one thing to say too, I don't feel inferior at all. Like I work with doctors and I'm like I'm pretty biased. Like I like the way I do things now. So I I I I I really am not intimidated by other doctors or anything now. I mean, obviously going through the rotations you are, but now that I've been practicing and learning, I mean, that's a pathway to your dreams. And I feel like, once you do that, sky's the limit. So
Yeah, totally. Couple quick questions. So was the class pass fail or were there like grades?
no, there were grades, but there was a grade, like a passing grade. Like, I mean, obviously uh, if you bombed things, but yeah, it was like, I think a C was passing.
Okay. And was there a class rank?
I think there was, but I don't really remember that per se, but I know you had to have a certain percentage to pass the class overall. And um the tests, like the clinical tests, the NBME exams, were pass fail though.
Okay. And were these lectures that you had, were they recorded or did you have to attend in person?
That helped me out a lot because they were recorded. So I would go back and just re-listen to the lectures, and I honestly could pay attention better doing that too. So that was helpful.
Okay. And was it mandatory to attend or could you just like listen to the lectures on your own time?
Um, I think I think there were times I missed. I don't think it was mandatory that you had to attend.
Okay.
So
Cool.
from
Yeah.
what
That
I
seems pretty
remember,
common.
I did attend, but sometimes you'd get bogged down and it was easier to watch it because you could focus, like this, you could hook your headphones up and really hone in. Whereas if you're in a classroom, I went to like 95%, probably even more than 95% of them, but I see the value in being able to not do that too.
Yeah. And what
So
was kind of like the day to day like there? Was it like 4 hours of lecture and then a bunch of studying the rest of the day, or what was kind of like your Monday through Friday like?
yeah, no, I think that's right. I mean, the first, I I think every class was probably about an hour. So like we'd have anatomy and I think embryology and histology was like the first semester, and then we had some other little classes, clinical based classes, and that would be like one semester we'd do that, and then the next one would be like physio and neurology and a couple other things. Microbiology. So it'd be like three or four classes per semester, and then we just move on
Okay.
to the next subject. But I think it's pretty traditional.
Did you feel like you had enough time at night or on the weekends to explore the island?
A little bit, you know. I wish I did more, honestly, but in the breaks were great. I Although I came home a lot during the breaks. In
Yeah. Yeah.
hindsight, I'm like, I should have just saved money and enjoyed the tropical island, but instead I was like, I want to go home and ski, and I shouldn't have thought that way. But part of it
I
is
don't blame you.
you wanted to reset, so you couldn't reset on the island. You wanted to get off and then come back. So
Uh-huh. And so you said there was no summer break between first and second year, but then second year you had a little bit of a break in between step one and your clinical rotations.
yeah,
And then rotations, it was just kind of all the way through.
yeah, but I guess I should clarify that between semesters there was I think it was either a 2 or a 3 week break between semesters. So
Oh,
they made
nice.
up for it. They made up for it that way. So like for instance, I got married, like I went to first semester and I came home, and I believe it was like 2 or 3 weeks, but that I had off, and I got married in that time, and then came back.
Yeah,
So
not a bad place to
no,
honeymoon.
yeah.
um, that's awesome, man. Well, I'm trying to think if there's anything else that would be helpful to know. Just as we wrap up
What
about
do you
St.
what do you
Matthews.
think, prospective students? I feel like I've been pretty open about, it's a good school with good professors. I mean, but you do have to study hard, like any school, to to uh, to do well, and if you do that, I mean, you're going to do well if you put in the time and are prepared. As far as like what they want to know versus other schools, I could tell you a little about other Caribbean schools.
Yeah, that'd be interesting to know about.
Yeah, so they're all, see, these Caribbean schools are money making institutions,
Hmm.
much like a lot of DO schools are in the US.
Hmm.
Kind of set up by business people, and but they are usually set up by US businesses. So like our US offices were in Orlando, Florida,
Hmm.
and I forget where Ross is. I think St. George's. You might have heard of St. George's.
Yeah.
They're in New York. I think Ross is Miami, but a lot of these schools have a U.S. base
Hmm.
and are owned by. You might have heard of DeVry University.
Uh-huh.
I think they may have owned Ross at one point, and so they're set up that way. So most of the students that go there are from the U.S., and they also have rotations set up in the U.S. at these major hospitals, and so there's quite a few Caribbean medical schools, but most of them are set up through U.S. companies, or just U.S. entrepreneurs. Um, and so but they have kind of the stigma of you went to a foreign school, and really, yeah, you are going to an offshore school, but a lot of it is set up with the US in mind.
Yeah, of course. And it seems it's kind of silly because it's like you learn the didactic stuff pretty much anywhere. You could learn it. Pretty much everybody's using outside resources at this point to learn the material. And then you're doing your rotations in the United States. So it seems like a great option. The question, touching back on what we were talking a little bit earlier, that my curiosity is spurred a little bit. So are these professors that are teaching there, um, are a lot of them practicing in the Caribbean, or do they come down there as visiting professors? How does that kind of work?
Yeah, no, I don't think a lot of them practice, but some of them practice like after, or they did practice,
Or
like
like
for instance,
retired?
yeah, like the professors from Russia. I think he was like a surgeon, the anatomy professor over there, and then he wanted to come here. And to be honest, in other countries, physicians don't make as much money as they make in the U.S.
Yeah.
or say as a professor at in the Cayman Islands. So some of the professors that the job there was probably a step up from the salary they were making, because in the US we make a lot more money than some of the other physicians worldwide.
Yeah.
So
Just the way that it's set up.
yeah.
Well, this has all
But
been super
mhm.
interesting. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Rich.
No, I was pretty much done. But yeah, they're all good professors. But we had, retired people that wanted to teach from the US that had they weren't all doctors either. They were like professors of microbiology, or or like our biochem teacher. I don't think he was a physician. He did something else. And our biostatistics teacher, he was from Great Britain, but I don't think he was a physician, but he was a PhD. Kind of
Hmm.
like your brother,
Yeah.
the biostatistics guy.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. So I guess my last question is, were you just done in the Cayman Islands after the first 2 years, or did you go back there for your graduation, or did you have to go back, or was it just like first 2 years done. Then after that, you lived where you were doing your rotations.
Yeah, now first 2 years done. Our graduation was in Florida by Disney World. So
Man, not a bad gig.
that was cool. And I mean, honestly, then once you match, as far as matching, that's probably something people want to know. I mean, the match rate in the Caribbean's a little less, obviously, but I think if you're a good student, you'll match. But yeah, I mean, I would say like a little bit above 50%. For if you look at the data on what is it, NRP? Is that what it is? NRP or NRMP?
For
I
international
don't.
medical graduates.
Yeah, it's like a little over 50%. So if you look across the board, I guess that's not just US IMGs, but that's everywhere. So I think that that's fair. A lot of people, but if you're prepared, you can match. I mean, that's the key. Passing your exams on the first try is critical, no matter where you go to school, even if it's in the U.S. Because I mean, people don't match always from even allopathic. I want to say it's like 95, 75, 50 is the match rate. 95 for US allopathic, maybe like 78, 80 for DO, and then like 55 for IMG.
Yeah, that sounds pretty
Percentage.
accurate. So, I mean, out of curiosity, do you know what your classmates did that didn't match? Like, what do these folks do?
Well, I have two friends. Ironically, their last name is they have the same last name, but I guess I shouldn't say what it is. But they didn't match, and
Uh-huh.
no relation to each other. That's why I think it's funny. But
Uh-huh.
they one of the guys' families owned like a hotel business, and so he just went into the family hotel business, and he's doing like really well. And then my other friend, but ironically he has the MD to his name. Like he's the
Hmm.
MBA, MBA, MD, MBA, and
Uh-huh.
then the other kid, he worked for a doctor's office, kind of like ran a doctor's office, and so I'm not sure exactly what he's doing, but he was running like a big clinic for this physician, and
Okay.
so and and I don't know the rules. I know some people as far as practicing rules, what exactly they are. Like I know, for instance, this might be different, but I had one of my residency people that I went to residency with. He got kicked out of residency for doing something he shouldn't have done, but he had he had like 1 or 2 years under his belt. He only had 1 year left, but he still works as a doctor. He just like moonlights in everywhere. And even though he didn't get his full fledged, board certification, he gets enough work from people needing like ER doctors to moonlight, even with only like 1 year of residency. So that's what he does.
Wow,
But
that's really interesting.
that is interesting in the Midwest where they're desperate for doctors, I guess. So
Yeah. Wow, I've learned so much. Well, I'm kind of through with my questions. Rich, if you don't have anything to add, I really appreciate you joining me and sharing about St. Matthew's University. And I'm a little jealous of your Cayman Island experience.
well, I'm sure Texas will be good to you, man. So, but
Thanks.
yeah, sorry I was a little scatterbrained on all that stuff, but yeah, I mean, I love what I do as a doctor now. I mean, in the Cayman Islands, it was like a means to an end to get to where I am, but yeah, it was definitely an adventure, and I think that people say, "Oh, you went to all that schooling, you put all that sacrifice in," and yeah, I did, but it was a freaking awesome adventure too. As far as like you said, the Cayman Islands and Florida and DC and all the places I got to go. I wouldn't trade those experiences for the world. But yeah, as far as my clinical practice, sports medicine, uh, residency and fellowship, it got me to that point, but the adventure along the way was worth it. So
Yeah, and it sounds like life's pretty good now. You're get a golf on Fridays or so.
yeah, yeah, man. Well, thanks for the questions. Hopefully, I was able to represent my school in an okay light. I know there's probably a lot more aspects to it than I was able to share, but I think it's a good school. And like I said, to begin with, if people want to realize their dream of being a doctor, maybe they're on the border of getting into medical school and they're just like right there. I think it's a viable option if you're willing to work hard and do your best. I mean, it's a way to become a doctor. So,
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thanks so much, man.
all right, have a good one.